Would now like to talk about older women's experiences of imprisonment based on a number of books written by myself entitled Older Women in the Criminal Justice System Running Out of Time, Ageing, Crime and Society, and some joint work by a leading expert in the field called Professor Ron Ade. The nature of older women's experiences in prison is one that is neglected. There are roughly only 300 to 320 women who are over 50. Many of them are serving a life sentence. Many of them are first-time offenders. Some of them are repeat offenders, and many have been in and out of the prison system throughout their life. Why would I say that they're kind of neglected? An interesting report was produced by the Prison Service of England and Wales in conjunction with NOMS, which is a National Offender Management System, that produced a thematic report called Old and Quiet, Older Prisoners in England and Wales. The key findings from my own work and that of the thematic report, which was the first report ever published that addressed the needs of older prisoners, is that their health and social care needs are not addressed. There's a failure to maintain a standard of care that is expected on the outside and not being replicated on the inside, beyond the walls, such as women are failing to have regular breast screening. There is a failure to ensure that women are being having regular cytology screenings. There is a lack of continuity of care from the outside to the inside in terms of prescribed medication. So what women are finding is that if they have an illness, their tablets, their medications are not being processed through the system, so that when they do eventually receive their medications, they could have gone without it for weeks. There might not be enough. There is an issue of the taking of medication in prison at certain times, and this could be due to the lack of staffing, staff strikes, the actual close down of a prison because of some sort of disorder by the prisons that taken place. There are numerous reasons for the lack of medication being delivered and received within a given time. There is also the issue of social care needs, in light that education, employment in prison is a privilege. It's a privilege, and therefore it's also limited. The resources are limited. So prison officers, through discretion, make a decision that older women have come to a part of their life course where their employment prospects are limited, and that thus it would make more sense and value to invest what limited resources in terms of employment and education there are to a younger cohort. So they are discriminated in terms of age. In terms of health and social care, there is a lack of medical facilities in terms of a palliative healthcare suite, a suite that deals with women who are dying. Our facilities fail to cater for those who are in later life or who have severe age-related illnesses such as dementia and Alzheimer's. These women are still expected to adhere to the regime. They are expected to be ready for breakfast. They'll be expected to be ready for dinner, and they'll be expected to be in certain places at a certain time. But the question that challenges this notion, or this type of policy, is that if you have an age-related mobility issue, then how can you get to one wing to another without the help of a wheelchair pusher, for example? Some prisons, mainly in the male estates, are using and training other prisoners to be able to deal with people who have certain disabilities. We still find in the women's estates, because it's so limited, so small in numbers, that women are unable to use facilities that are appropriate for them, especially if they are disabled. Some women who have an issue with or use wheelchairs or have a further issue around mobility have to be on a lower floor, on a ground floor. But in some prisons, they may only have one cell that's already been occupied by 2 prisoners. So what happens is that women who can't use the normal showers will actually have to have someone push them to a modified cell for them to be able to use somebody else's shower. And in this day and age, that's not appropriate. And what it does show is that women of this age are being further punished because they cannot comply with the regime of that particular prison. It also signifies that the state has an enormous power to punish. And surely the issue around punishment and prison, it's not purely about retribution and deterrence. They're there to serve their time. Their punishment was purely and only the deprivation of liberty. We also have to consider, when we're thinking about the older prison population, not just providing alternative facilities, but we have to question whether it is ideal to punish this particular group in this particular setting. Surely in the 21st century we can find more humane ways of punishing individuals that's based on social justice and sits within a human rights framework. The debates around older offenders really do centre around the need to provide alternative facilities. It poses the challenge of whether it is necessary to imprison this group. Therefore, what is the purpose of imprisonment? Who are we punishing and why? I'd like to conclude by stating that this group is an ideal group to use for a decarcerationist agenda. It's an ideal group because they pose less of security to themselves and less of a harm to society. Their offences are generally one-off, and the sentences given to this particular group are generally disproportionate. I say this because statistically it's been shown that from 1971 to 1999 that life sentences, i.e. offences such as murder, manslaughter, have gone up for women in a disproportionate manner. And these women who we find who have committed murder, it's usually against a violent and abusive partner. So let's consider a new way of thinking about the imprisonment of women and that of older offenders in England and Wales, which is based on human rights, social justice, and that is one that empowers individuals rather than cause more social harm to a very disadvantaged group. In this tutorial we've covered the history of imprisonment. We've looked at prisons today. We've looked at the nature of who we imprison. We've also looked at women in the female estate in England and Wales, and we've honed that down to older women. And by looking at older women, we have addressed and questioned why we punish certain groups, how we punish certain groups, how their needs are unmet, and whether the prison estate fulfills their mission statement of providing a duty of care for the people they hold.